What's up, beautiful humans, and welcome to another Sunday Night Soul session with me and my beautiful friend Pamela Topchin of Breakthrough Hypnotherapy. Tonight on the Transgender Mentor, we are going to talk about bullying, and we're going to talk about its effects, its origins, and really how it affects humanity as a whole. You know, none of us are just standalone creatures. We are all truly of one. You know, we are all created and we are all so connected as one. And I have just recently watched the new movie starring Mark Wahlberg that is based on a true event, and it's called Joe Bell. And we will talk a little more about this story, but Joe Bell is a father who began walking across the country after the suicide of his 15-year-old son, Jaden. And so we're going to talk about the effects of bullying and again, how it affects families, how it affects us mentally, physically, and hopefully some things that you can do if you're being bullied or if have experienced bullying to help heal that within. You know, please don't make a permanent decision for something that will and can get better. You know, suicide is too much of an epidemic in this world, especially for LGBTQIA plus youth. And we need to put a stop to that. It is our humanity that lets other humans know that they are okay and that they are loved and that they are perfectly and wonderfully made just as they are. So I'm excited to be here with you and yet again share a stage with my good friend Pamela Topchian. And so if you're on the YouTube channel, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Like the video. Leave us a comment on some things that we could talk about that you're going through. You don't have to be a person in transition or identify as a transgender person to get something out of this content. We talk about a lot of things here. I especially want to reach out to families of transgender youth or that have children that are trans or someone in their family that's trans. And most of all, I want to reach out to people that identify as cisgendered, meaning happy with the gender they are. And I want to help spread education, information, inspiration, and love and motivation for change throughout the world. When we start seeing each other as part of one accord, we all heal. So, if you all are ready to get into this Super Soul Sunday with me and my beautiful friend Pamela Topjian, well, we are absolutely ready. So let's go. Pamela Topjian,
Hi.
welcome. I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you, as always,
I'm
for
so
coming to
honored to be here.
chill.
Thank you.
I'm glad that you're here because this is an important topic for us to talk about and what a dynamic. You know, you have a trans man and a cisgendered female and we're talking about things that are affecting all of us in the world. I mean, all
Yes.
honesty, we're human beings above anything else. However we
Yeah.
identify, color of our skin. It seems to be a big topic in the world. No matter what we have going on, we're still judging people for the color of their skin, like that can be helped. And for things we don't understand, like we all believe that it's a choice. And so, Pam, I watched this movie last night, was not prepared for the ending because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know the story, but it was called Joe Bell and it stars Mark Wahlberg. He
Mm-hmm.
plays the character of Joe Bell, who is the father of a young man named Jaden Bell. And Jaden is a high school student. He's 15 years old and he's from a small town in Oregon. And he begins being bullied severely at his high school for being gay. And while he did his best to try to stand up for who he was, and he had a family that was accepting of him. His father was never brutal or mean or pushed him away at all, but his father just wanted him to keep it down.
Yeah.
There's a scene in the movie where Jaden has is on the cheerleading squad, and they go to one of the games, and people in the stands begin throwing things
Mhm.
at Jaden and starting to call him names, and his father just gets up and leaves.
Mm.
And another scene where Jaden is in the front yard practicing his cheers with his best friend who's a female, and his dad comes out of the house and he says, "Go in the backyard. I'm trying to watch TV. I can't hear the TV." And Jaden says, "Well, can you just turn the TV up?" And his dad finally gets flustered and says, "Can you just do this in the backyard? Just
Mm.
just do your stuff. We're accepting, but just do this in the backyard." And after some incidences at school and not really experiencing his father standing up for him, um, Jaden kills himself on the
Oh
well, he
gosh.
he hangs himself there in the
Oof.
playground of the school and then is on life support for I think about a week or so
Mm.
later, and they finally pull the plug. And Joe, his father, decides to walk from Oregon to New York and
Mhm.
stop along the way and talk about the effects of bullying. So that's what I really felt like we should talk about tonight, are the effects of
Yeah.
bullying. Jaden was being bullied not only in person by his peers at school, but he was also
Mhm.
being bullied on social media.
Mhm.
And people my age, I the social media aspect, is very new to me because
No, right.
yeah, I myself went through being bullied in school because I was, of course, different.
Mhm.
Very always identified more male, didn't have real female traits, and I got a lot of things go on in school. Um, but the social media aspect, I mean, the what they were showing was very harsh. I mean, young kids telling him, "Why don't you just kill yourself?" I mean,
Mm.
where does this hate and anger and meanness come from in kids? You know?
Yeah, kids are almost, the worst, I mean, and I think that yeah, I can't say why, but I mean, even before social media, and even, regardless of any, gender identity, kids are just the meanest bullies,
Yeah,
regardless of their family life or anything. But, that leads us to, your home is supposed to be your safe space, your space
hmm,
that you feel comfortable to be fully yourself and to share with your parents. If there's anybody that's watching that is, younger and still in school, or even if there's any parents that watch this, um, you know, your kids need to have you as your safe space,
yeah,
regardless of how you feel about whatever it is they're being bullied about. You want them to feel safe to come to you, so you even know that they're being bullied. Um,
yeah,
I think that that's one of the biggest problems too, is that a lot of times the kids are either ashamed or they just don't want to tell their parents. Maybe they don't want their parents to get involved because they think it'll be worse. I
right,
don't
right,
know. I don't have the answers, but I think that awareness and just, like we've been talking about, basic human compassion, regardless of, the color of your skin, your religion, your, gender identity or sexual orientation, any of it, as you've been saying for so long, is, we're all just human and we all have so many more alike than we are different. We're
right,
all part of
yeah,
this universe, all part of the whole. And, as you said before too, whatever you believe you were created from, that creator made you the way you are for a reason,
Yeah.
and didn't want you to hide who you were. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, like we've said before too, is talking about not hiding, we also don't want you to feel like you need to be loud and proud about whatever's going on if you're not safe doing so, if you don't feel safe doing
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, and I
But
think that it brings us to this place where, we all know that children are born as, these beautiful pieces of moldable clay,
mhm,
so to speak. And
yes.
so I think that so much of, because as we've studied psychology and we've studied the effects of childhood abuse or corporal
Mhm.
punishment in the home, there's so many times that those that are being bullied are often having their own struggles at home. And I
Yeah.
think that when we see a child who steps into the place of a bully, then there is some responsibility. There's a major responsibility on
Yeah.
us as parents to know that
Mhm.
that's the role that our child plays. I remember I will be pretty transparent. I remember as a young person in middle school being bullied a lot. And I remember that there came a time when I was just about to break in that role of being bullied, and there happened to be this weaker student that I bullied like twice to fit in. And I
Mhm.
remember number one being so I was ashamed of myself, number one, for even doing that. But at the same time, it was like I was able to identify with those bullies. And I could
Mhm.
understand that, wow, so this is almost like, it's happening with me. It must be happening to them. Because that was
Mhm.
my only like real inspiration, so to speak, for even doing that was like I was about to break under pressure and I
Mhm.
lashed out. And then I also had an incident, and this happened twice. There was two incidences, and when I saw her break, the young girl that I messed with or
Mhm.
made fun of, I saw her kind of break in that second time, and I just
Mhm.
remember standing there with her and just she threw her books down, and I just remember in that moment thinking, I can't, like, this is not my role. Like, I can't be
Yeah.
here. So I helped her pick her books up, and I told her how sorry I was. And from that day on, I can say that I never put myself in that situation again. But I was able to relate in those two times that I did that,
Mhm.
that I was trying to hide something about myself, and I was
Right.
trying to cover up and mask my own pain. But
Mhm.
then there was an incident with my son, and he was about in the same grade, and he was a big kid at the time, and I would ask him a lot, is everything okay at school? Are you being
Mhm.
bullied? He was new in school. It was a very
Mhm.
different area in school he was going to, and just wanted to know as a parent if this was happening. And
Yeah.
he always said no. But there was a call that we got from school that he had picked on another little boy, and the little boy threw a desk or a chair at him or something.
Oh
And I
gosh.
knew, he made light of it, but I
Mhm.
knew that, somebody doesn't pick up a chair and throw it at
Lightly.
you. Yeah, if you've only just messed with them once, have
Mhm.
you been messing with this younger, weaker, young man before? So it's like I was able to walk in those shoes, and I was able to realize that I was hard on him, and I was possibly critical of him during that time, and maybe
Mhm.
that pressure was making me not be able to be a safe space for him to tell me he
Right.
was being bullied.
Somebody that
Um,
he felt he could come to and
right,
tell
right,
everything, tell what's going on, yeah.
right. And then the way that I reacted, and at first I reacted poorly to him being a bully,
Mhm.
but it took, a few days for me to actually process all of that and
Yeah.
realize, there's a lot leading up to that. And the moral of this story is that a lot of it rested on my shoulders
Yeah.
and as a parent. And
Well,
so,
too, it goes to show too that whether he knew or not, you're bringing your experiences from your childhood to your parenting. You can't
yeah,
help it.
yeah, yeah. Talk more about that. Talk more about that because I think that you have some great experience with that as well.
I think that your whole in your subconscious mind is everything from your whole life. From your whole life. It doesn't mean it's in your conscious mind. It doesn't mean it's where you're going to remember it. But even one sentence, even something that you grew up around, whether it was told to you or directed at you or not, it's all in there. And we are not given any rules, or any guidelines other than maybe a book or two, when you are having children, regardless of if you're a step parent or they're your own children, but just raising up children and being a parent in any way, you can't help but to bring that stuff with you from your whole experience of your whole life. So we have to be able to step back in those moments, especially I'm sure that you felt a little bit of a, almost like a trigger response or a trauma
Oh,
response when
sure. Yeah.
heard about bullying, regardless of, whether it was him doing the bullying or him being bullied, you had
Mhm.
this experience in your life growing up. So you're going to automatically get those feelings back,
Yeah.
and you might just respond in just a reaction and just an emotional reaction. And that I think is very common. I think, it's just very common to bring that stuff back. And as you always say, it's okay. You can't expect perfection from you or anybody. But what you can do is to go back and clean it up. Like you've said before,
Yeah.
you go back and you say, look, I didn't respond in the way that I would like to have responded, and I apologize for that. And just try to look within yourself before you bring it to the child or whoever it is. But, you can't help but to parent the way that you were brought up, or at least have some of that come up. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess even the things that you say, the vows that you make a lot of times in your younger life, well, when I have kids of my own, I'll never
Mhm.
do this and I'll never do that. And it just seems like, the years between those
Mhm.
statements and those intentions change and then these kids come along and like you said, they don't come with a book. So
Right.
you are just kind of trying to move through this thing and figure it out and it's I
Well,
think it happens. Go ahead.
even a quick, you're going to, even if you've made those vows, and even if you remember those vows and you have thought about it throughout the time of raising this child or your children, you're still going to have that, just that quick reaction, that emotional response is going to come up if it's something that was very um, emotionally charged within you. You're still
Yeah,
going to have that because your vows and your promises to yourself and to your children are in the conscious mind. It's something that I made a deal with myself. I've said
yeah,
these things, and maybe even wrote them down in a journal or something. But then that emotional response is coming from a deeper place. And it's
yeah,
it's like a
it's
trigger.
true.
It's like just like a quick
Yeah,
response. And you have to be mindful of that. I mean, as a parent, and we're talking about parents, but the teachers, anybody that
yeah,
works with children or around children, and we're talking children. Children does not mean little kids only. Children are teens, anybody under 20,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
these are kids, they think they're adults. A lot of times they act like adults. They definitely look like adults. But think of how short of a time 20 years is
yeah.
to be on this earth.
So true. So true. And one of the things, one of the incidences in the movie Joe Bell.
Mhm.
Jaden and his parents. Jaden's is attacked in the locker room
Mhm.
by a bunch of boys, and then they go to the principal of the school, and the principal, in fact, urges Jaden not to file a report, as she says it's going to be
Mm.
safer for you because these kids come from families that think like they do, and this is a
Yes.
small community, and if we file this complaint, the likelihood is they're going to come back,
And
at
retaliate
you,
somehow, yeah.
and even says that to the parents. And I think one of the biggest hurtful things, and this was according to the timeline, this is like the final straw that gives Jaden that hopeless feeling, that feeling of there's no
Mhm.
hope because,
Right.
the parents don't stand up and say anything. And when they get home, mom and dad are fighting because, moms are generally the most accepting. If there's going to be two
Mhm.
parents, the moms generally, are more
Right.
accepting. And the dad is dealing with his own non-understanding and how does
Mhm.
this look on us, or and maybe even trying to keep him safe knowing the area that they live in,
Right.
because you can see that point of view as well. How do I keep this
Absolutely.
child safe, but at the same time, how much more important is it to start to build the confidence within a child,
Mhm.
within a human being, that they become comfortable in their own skin, so that these things, because bullies thrive on getting a reaction
Right, absolutely.
from the bullied and the
Yeah,
crowd are surrounding the bullied. So
yeah.
when the bullied is so comfortable and strong within themselves, they become less of a target. And
Mhm.
that's a hard line to begin to develop. And I think that talking about it more and getting better training for our, school boards and professionals are going to be, even our law enforcement. And
Yeah,
we need to start really taking these situations seriously because we have
yeah.
far too many suicides in this country alone
Oh
for
gosh,
children
yeah.
under the age of 18, and 40% of them are identifying as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or trans.
Mhm.
And that consistently chokes me up to
Yeah, me
think,
too.
because that lost feeling inside of somebody, that that people don't accept me, what's wrong with me. So I think that, at home, if you have young kids, regardless of how they identify or who you
Yeah,
hope they're going to be, what's the cost of hanging on so tightly to your dream for your child versus having your child here? Because I can
yeah,
imagine that for every family member that is left behind in the wake of these suicides by these young people, they would say it would be far more important to me to have my child here than
yeah.
to worry about what the neighbors were going to think.
Right,
And we are the change. Like,
right.
we got to not fail to remember that we are the actual change that makes this more. I don't want to even say the word acceptable, because nobody needs you to accept who we are.
Right,
We just need you to realize that we're human beings.
right.
So
Just basic
it's
human compassion. Yeah,
right. When do we wake up to that and stop this trend of bullying and torturing, be it
yeah.
based on skin color, be it based on identity, sexual orientation, or whatever? When do
Mhm.
we take ourselves down from that superior place and realize that we're all here equally together?
It's just
That's
amazing to me that at this time in
yeah,
2021 that we still have so much, prejudice and racism and
I know.
all kinds of prejudice. And you know we have to think, what can we do differently, we as a human species, what can we
Collective,
all
yeah.
do differently? And I think that it comes down to just education, just the principal in that school could have then set up for whether it's a parent day or
Yeah.
for the school, for the staff, for
Mhm.
awareness and just education on not just any kind of LGBTQ
Right.
community, but just about prejudice and hate
Yeah.
and bullying. Um, you know, just I think that that needs to happen in every school, everywhere, even if the area is accepting and it's more
Mhm.
open. I think that it's time that every school has every year staff being educated, and then having an open night, or even a couple
Yeah.
open nights, every, half the year, and then, in the beginning of the year, and then halfway through for the parents, and then have this spill over to the students to where the teachers can have a lecture, just
Yeah.
occasionally to the classes, or, just have a discussion, have an open discussion with their
Yeah.
class, and not just like we were saying, not just LGBTQ, but just around any kind of prejudice. I think that
Absolutely.
would go a long way, and that we have to say is something you can do.
Yeah.
You do go into schools, you go into other platforms of groups and meetings, and you can speak on this.
Yeah.
For LGBTQ or transgender, especially children, because with the transgender community, they know really early on, and I think it's really important that we don't just think that the high schools are the only ones that need this kind of
Right.
information, that
Yeah, for sure.
this needs to come from the little kids,
Yeah.
because even if they're hearing things, whether it's on movies or just in the background of shows or even in their home from their parents who are still very prejudiced,
Mhm.
these younger children can learn to sort of you know, think for themselves and sort of step back a little and say, wow, that's a little different than what I've heard from my dad or my grandpa, my
Yeah.
grandparents' house or whatever. Um, and to sort of, do a little self reflection that, maybe they can think for themselves, even if it is something else is being shown to them in their household. So I think
Yeah.
that's where the answer lies, is in education,
Yeah.
not only at the schools, but I don't know, where else can we, where else can we spread this
Well
information, I think
well,
that's where where that answer is.
I think in a in a more progressive world,
Mhm.
you know, we should even be able to talk about this in the places that people congregate, meaning even our churches. We should be able to talk about things like that. Unfortunately, in the area that I live, it's not very easy for me to come into schools and do a program, as somehow they think that if we bring in a speaker on this subject, we're condoning
Mm,
the subject or condoning the behavior, which in lies the problem. When
right.
someone says, because I hear this a lot, especially in this area, well, I'm not against it, but I don't condone it. As if it is something that needs your condonement. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, for people to realize that someone else's sexuality or gender identity, somebody else's status, their color, who they are
Yeah.
attracted to and love, even if it's a different race or religion,
Mhm.
has nothing at all to do with you. Like,
Right.
this is a very individualized situation. It is not necessarily
Yeah.
a family issue like addiction is. Addiction is a
Mhm.
family issue because
Absolutely.
literally that pain is going to touch each
Mhm.
of the family members. But this is something completely different. You know,
Right.
this is something that someone inherently can't help. You know,
Right.
and the more they decide to try to help it, the
Mhm.
worse
So,
they
yeah.
become. And how happy are we, you know, as adults, as parents? How happy is it for you to watch a child be completely withdrawn within themselves?
Right.
I guess my point is complacency is no longer acceptable. We
Right, and
cannot
it's not
be
better.
no, we cannot just be complacent and sit by and say, well, this is just the way things are, or well, this is just the place I live, and well, this is just the way I was raised.
Mhm.
These are all excuses that
Yeah.
allow someone to not deal with it. But
Yeah.
you got to think about what's past you. And I think
Mhm.
that maybe that might be where we are in this newer, more evolving place of consciousness is that we have to realize that everything's not about us and that we
Mhm.
often have to turn to look at while we can only fix us, we also have to look at humanity and people as a whole and
Yeah.
to try to see how what what's done today is going to affect someone tomorrow.
Right.
And as you said, and we talked about earlier, is that all children need to have a safe space. All
Yeah.
adults need to have a safe
We
space.
all do, yeah.
We really, really do. That's why
Mhm.
we're able to make friendships and go to support groups and
Mhm.
go, you know, be involved in different online groups and different things because we need that connection and we need to feel like we need a safe space. We
Yeah.
can't forget that our children, whether they're ours, whether they're nieces or nephews or
Mhm.
family friends, that they need one too.
Yeah.
And we could possibly be that. Um,
Yeah.
as you can tell, bullying becomes a very passionate subject for me just because of knowing how it feels and
Mhm.
watching that movie last night was
Yeah.
really, really like touched in my heart to watch this
Yeah.
young man suffer for something that I felt like his being out and who he felt like was authentically him was
Mhm.
commendable and courageous.
Right.
And and I guess that I wish people could understand that it's not a choice. The only
Right.
choice one
It's
makes
not
is to
attention
be
seeking either.
themselves. Right.
They're
Right.
just trying to be whole and real within themselves and just out in the world as who they are. And
Yeah.
it's not attention seeking or like you said or a choice. Where did what was the platform that you watched the movie on? Cuz I have not
Oh,
seen that movie.
I watched the movie on Amazon Prime, so it's a
Okay.
newer movie, so I had to rent it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I mean it's a really great
Yeah.
movie to just to see how we all are touched by something and
Yeah.
how we can all make a difference. You know, for his father to now begin this walk across America and stop
Mhm.
in little towns and civic centers and schools. And not to
Right.
say he was all that great of a speaker, like he was not a profound speaker. You
Right. He was
watch
just a
his healing.
father who wanted to
He
get a
was just
message
a father.
across. Yeah.
Yeah. And you watched his evolution, his healing process
Mhm.
while he was out on the road because
Mhm.
he left questioning himself about what could I have done different? I
Mhm.
should have been different. I should have been more. I should have. And so he
Yeah.
finds his healing out on the road. And you watch his speeches when you see them kind of progressively get
Mhm.
better and more passionate.
Yeah.
Um, and so, if we all take a page from Joe Bell's playbook and kind of realize that the things that have touched us in our life, whether it's bullying, whether it's addiction, whether it's, assault, whatever it is, that we think are the things that are meant to try to put us in the ground or kill us, our soul. These are the very things that within them hold our purpose.
Yeah.
It's that pain to purpose
Yeah.
mentality that if we can take ourselves out of something and do the healing about it, because if it just lays within you and we always remain victimized, if we always
Yeah.
remain in that place of being deflected
Right.
and we never work on that, it can't be purpose. But when we
Right.
start with ourselves and heal ourselves, when something like that bothers somebody, I can't say this enough and it'll be repetitive. When something like that bothers the inside of you, ask why. Don't
Right.
automatically vilify the person that's now come in your existence, and don't damn them as the
Right.
very as the very God you pray to likely brought them to
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah. It's a
why
gift to be
it's a gift.
given, to have an opportunity to look at something more closely. If something that is affecting you so harshly, there's a reason that it's affecting you that way. It's an
Yeah,
opportunity for you to learn and grow and evolve from within yourself.
that's so
When
true.
anything, regardless of what it is, anything that really hits you hard, that's your sign right there that it's something that you need to look at. And like you
That's your
said,
gift. Yeah,
when you get, really triggered by something, or somebody, really pushes your buttons, or something that you just, can't wrap your head around, that has nothing to do with them. That has something to do with you. That is
right,
your issue. That is not their issue.
right,
And
right.
that's your sign. That's your opportunity to say, why am I feeling so harshly about this? Whatever this is, why am I feeling so harshly about it? And then take a step back from those feelings and try to look into yourself. Where did that come from? Why am I
Yeah,
having an issue?
yeah. I've been criticized in the past for the way that I talk to those that I consider to be my recovery warriors.
Hmm.
Oftentimes we're told when your triggers are happening, just do something different or,
Right.
try to take your mind off of it. Well, I really believe in what I've experienced is when I have those triggers, I actually, my immediate instinct is to run away,
Right.
because
I think
that's
that's
over
everybody's
time.
instinct. Yep.
Right. And that's the modality of recovery that you're taught. Um, in the process of that running away, I had to start practicing stopping myself and turning around to the trigger and
Yeah.
having that conversation with the trigger. Because if
Yeah.
you can trace it back and find that, Stephanie Wagner, I love you. Thank you for being here. Um, she's a wonderful example. Um, of somebody who started to do this and really started to experience some change in her life. But
Yeah.
when you stop and go and turn around to that trigger and begin to speak to it, ask it
Hmm.
what is here, what are you showing me,
Right. What do you
why,
have to show me? Yeah.
right, what do you have to show me about me? You start to find out, number one, that you're stronger than you thought you were and that trigger
Hmm.
is not controlling of you, and that you don't have to go into that same habitual way of dealing with it, which is using or cutting or whatever
Yeah.
it is. And if you can get to the root of it, you can pull it up. Doesn't
Hmm.
mean there's not another trigger waiting behind it, because
Right.
likelihood is you've got a lot of stuff sitting there
Right.
unhealed. But if we could change the instinct to run away from
Mhm.
these things. If we could change that one program, I think we could start seeing humanity
Yeah.
become healthier, whole individuals and therefore more together,
Yeah.
you know?
I think that the idea of, you know, quickly doing something else or, you know, getting in the shower or putting on some music or doing
Oh,
something
yeah,
to
those
get your
things are
mind
great.
away from it,
Yeah.
that's more of when you're in a panic mode, when you're
Like,
in a
yeah.
crisis mode,
Yeah.
when you just are so you can't even think straight. That's when you have to
Right.
you have to
Yeah,
change that
that's
right
the
away. You
moment.
have to.
Yeah.
Right. But when you're triggered and you're not having some sort of a panic response or some sort of a deep anxiety, response, that's when you need to realize, where is this coming from, and
Right.
like you
Yeah.
said, step back and look within yourself and it's not a matter of running from it or changing it, it's a matter of looking more closely, and you have to
Yes.
step back to look more closely at it, which doesn't sound right, but that's what it is. You step, if the trigger is here, you're like step back from it, you step away like, whoa, I don't want to feel that way.
Right.
Where is that coming from?
Right.
What happened there?
Yeah.
And it does take some practice. It does. I
Oh,
mean, you and I
yeah.
both know, we talk about this all the time,
Yeah.
that something comes up, life happens, you're not going to be able to live like a monk up, in a cave or something,
Right.
in the mountains.
Right.
Life happens around you. And, you're just human, you're going to be triggered, but once you can get to the place where you can, step back, and it's not easy, but once you can get to that place, it's really empowering, and it's really,
It
a
is.
lesson every single time, and it
It
just shows
certainly
you it's
is.
an opportunity. It shows you where you need to grow.
Yes, the opportunity and oppression, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
and I think that that's valuable information, and I think that if we could really start redefining what gifts look like in our awareness, if we can stop thinking that the gift of life is always has to be external things or this
Yeah.
constant, permanent smile or happiness. We have to understand that number one, that's not sustainable. And regardless of who you think you're looking at that is happy and peaceful and da 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 all the time, that's not really what's up. When we talk
They
about
have their
being
days.
right, and we talk about true happiness, I think that that's more than a good feeling. I think
Mhm.
true happiness is realizing just what we're talking about, that your greatest gifts can also be in your greatest opposition, and
Mhm.
that when you are able to take the responsibility that you've placed on someone else, when you can take that victim role off of yourself and
Mhm.
say, okay, I'm seeing I've been through this a lot, so I'll use myself as an example. I'm seeing LC and I don't like this trans thing. I don't think that's
Mhm.
right. I think that that's blah, 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 whatever you think. When you can take that responsibility off of me to change and shift myself to keep you comfortable and whoever else, and you can realize that it doesn't have anything to do with me, that it has everything to
Right.
do with yourself. Why does that bother me so much when it really doesn't affect me at all?
Yeah.
Then, and how much of how I feel has been fear that belonged to someone else that has
Yeah.
been imprinted upon me throughout the year. Because one of my favorite excuses is, well, that's just how I was raised.
Mhm.
And that makes it right. Like, that's
Yeah.
a beautiful indicator of some places to look. Um,
Right.
because life changes constantly and consistently, and that's the one thing we can count on. So as life changes constantly, people evolve.
Yeah.
We start to see the the human beings that have been involved in systematic oppression and racism get to a boiling point after generations. As we talk today, Eric McCoy and I for our show today, and we covered, Black Lives Matter.
Mhm.
And each generation of individual carries the bag of the generations past.
Right,
So the
right.
oppression is continuing to come along with us until finally there's a breaking point.
Mhm.
And where we start to see people say, well, the world's going crazy. There's so many gays, and there's so many these trans people are out loud, and the blacks have gone crazy. And no, in all honesty, we've all been here. We've all put up
Yeah,
with this systematic, this racism, prejudice, and to the point that human beings can only take so much. We all reach a breaking point.
yeah,
That's going to be the same in bullying. Bullying is, the same thing that we've been going through systematically. It's just there's not one name or face to it. But when you're a young person in school or on social media, there's a one person and a face that you can say, this person's bullying me. You're going to reach a breaking point.
yeah,
Now we're either going to implode or we're going to explode. How, in these last 10 minutes of our show, reach out for to not do either, because all of that is dangerous for individuals and humanity as a whole. You know, we've talked about suicide a lot these last couple of weeks that we've been talking, and mental health issues, and I think this will be no different. If you are in the world today, regardless of who you are or what you're going through, and you're feeling like you want to make a permanent solution to something that I promise you is very temporary, please just reach out. And I saw
yeah.
something very special today, and I posted it on my page, and I'll mess it up, but it said this. It said, to all of those that tell people that are having a hard time to reach out. You know, the the language of
Mm,
depression tells you to stay within. So why don't we reach out when we
right.
see?
I saw that. Yeah, that
Did you see
yeah,
that?
yeah, that if there's somebody that you are close with and you suddenly see them withdrawing or they're not or you don't see them for a while or hear from them a while, maybe it's up to us rather
Right.
than asking these people that are in depression or having a
Yeah.
really hard time, instead of asking them or telling them, hey, you can always reach out to me. It, reach out yourself. Reach
Yes.
out to these people. There's nothing wrong with sending a text or a message. Hey, how you doing? Been thinking
Right.
about you. you know you
Right.
don't even have to say, I noticed you haven't been on, or I hope that you're doing okay, because you don't want to call them out on it.
Right.
Just, I've been
Right.
thinking about you. How are you? you know how
Yeah.
you been doing? You're
It's
on my
amazing.
mind, or whatever. And it
Yeah.
can make a
Just
huge difference. It can make a huge difference. And I
yeah.
also I we see it going around, and I think I've mentioned this in other shows too, where you can always count on me. I'm your friend. To just like put out there, and if you agree, go ahead and share this out. It's like, well, that doesn't do a whole lot of good, I don't think.
Mhm.
You, because your friends and your family maybe can't always be there. Maybe they
Yeah.
can't always be there for you. So I would
Yes.
hate for somebody to feel like, you know, that they couldn't reach out to me or they couldn't contact me and I was their last hope.
Yeah.
That's why those numbers that you're putting there,
Yes.
it's great to say, I'm here for you. I'm your friend. Anytime you need to talk, please reach out to me. But also, if you're in panic mode, if you're at that breaking point, here's some other resources in case you
Right.
can't. And even if you can reach your friends and your family, that's a lot of burden to put on them. If you're in those really, if you're feeling suicidal or if you're feeling hopeless, it's important to have these numbers at hand and to share them more so than to say, you know, hey, you can always call me. But yeah, but that point of don't put it on the depressed person, because yeah, they're going to be the ones to withdraw, within
Yeah.
themselves and not reach out to people because that's part of what depression is, like you said. So, yeah.
Well, and also in reaching out to some of these hotlines and stuff, you've got
Hmm.
a professional, or trained human being on the other end
Right.
versus, your family may not know
Right.
what to say. And the likelihood
Yeah.
is there's a possibility they could say something that make it
Hmm.
worse.
Yeah.
I've had that same situation happen where I
Hmm.
reached out to a sponsor and, maybe they were having a hard time or maybe
Hmm.
whatever. And, they said, well, you're just going to have to get over it. And that was
Right.
the moment where I was just like,
Ooh.
whoa,
Yeah.
okay,
Exactly.
well, this
Yeah.
is this is just what I needed to,
I've had,
go
what's
the
the
other
matter
way.
now?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and there's no telling, what's happening in their world. So I think that it's amazing to be sure. I used to end every one of my videos with, if you're suffering, don't suffer in silence. Please reach out. Until I
Hmm.
realized that I no longer had the capacity for people to reach out to me because I was working so much and so people were going unheard and I did not want
Yes.
people to feel like, you know, I was a bullshitter by just
Right.
saying that and not being there. And I
Right.
wanted to be there for everybody, but I wasn't
Right.
trained to be. I didn't have the time to be, and I was in my own
Right.
healing process. And so I had to stop saying that as much as I would love for it to be
Hmm.
true. At a certain point, it just couldn't be anymore. But, I
Yeah.
do want people to know that there are
Yeah.
resources available. And and just like in the recovery process, if you don't get the first time you call, if it's not the person or the right place for you, then just keep calling, keep
Right.
going and find where you fit, you
Right.
know?
And there's multiple crisis hotlines, there's crisis
There
text
are.
lines, there's multiple different ones. So if
Yes.
something doesn't work out for you, there's another one. And another thing too is with the um, when you are feeling depressed and you are in that hopeless mode, if you do reach out to somebody, your mind might tell you, even though they're at work or something, or they're sleeping, or
Yes.
they're whatever the reason you can't reach them, your
Yes.
depressed mind is going to not be your friend, and it's going to tell you, oh, they don't
Yep.
care about me,
Yep.
or
That's exactly right.
they're ignoring me, they're tired of me. you know you're going to be thinking all these things when really they're just at work and have their phone off,
Correct.
or they're
Correct.
sleeping. And these
Correct.
hotlines have 24/7. I mean, there's certain ones that are not 24/7, but it's listed. But there's
Yeah.
lots of them that are 24/7, and there's always going to be somebody waiting for you. And as we
Yes.
said before, you're not going to be taking the place of somebody, even if you're just feeling a little panicked, or you're feeling a little hopeless, or just I don't know, if you're not suicidal, it doesn't mean that you're going to be taking up the place of somebody who is if they try to call, because they've got
Right.
multiple people on these lines. It's not just
Right.
one person on the other end waiting, and your call, feeling panicked is not going to take away from somebody else calling who may be suicidal. Because I've heard that quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's not that
Yeah.
bad.
Well, hit up Google, everybody. If you watch this, whether you watch this now or you watch this later, hit up Google if these aren't quite the numbers for you. A lot of them are, trans and LGBTQ specific, but the National Suicide Hotline is there. They always have text. They have a chat line. Just Google. Let this be your best friend.
Yeah,
Find your place on Google,
yeah,
but reach out. Please don't make a permanent solution to a
yeah,
problem that, again, I promise you is temporary. Life is
yeah.
always changing. And even better
Hmm.
than that, you're always changing. And so you can heal these very things that seem to be plaguing you, regardless of the modalities in which you have to use, whether your
Yeah.
combination is medication and counseling and hypnotherapy. Doesn't matter. Create a program, a cocktail, a gumbo that is perfect for you. Don't
A
just
toy
go to one
box.
place. That's right, a toy box. And remember, if you want to heal some of these inner child things that's maybe still plague you, some of those areas that you know started when you were very young and that still affect you today, reach out to Pam at hypnobreakthrough.com. She's doing group sessions right now, and don't don't say you can't afford it, because these group sessions are at a donation. We'd like to do a $10 donation if that's possible, but reach out to Pam. She is very much willing to help you work out. We'd like to say $10 minimum, but that's not necessarily the case. It's on an
There's no
individualized
minimum. Yep.
basis. So you reach out to Pam, and she will get you hooked up with this. I mean, hypnotherapy is an amazing way to begin to heal that subconscious mind within. The conscious mind is what we, think and move our day with. My conscious mind just
Right.
picked up this glass,
Right.
but what basically, helps me drive and brush my teeth every day, those are the subconscious mind. So if you think subconscious mind sounds new age and something, it's not, it's real, it's really happening. It is within you. That's what drives your programs. Your daily routines are being driven by your subconscious mind, and that subconscious drives you towards situations that feel comfortable or safe to you, even though they're situations that you want to
Right.
change. So I urge you to look into hypnotherapy, look into inner healing, and give Pamela an Pamela's just an amazing human being to be doing
Thank
that,
you.
and so she's really good at helping you. She's helped me. She's helped my wife. I mean, we'll stand by Pam and hypnobreakthrough.com forever. It's an amazing way to heal.
Thank you.
Beautiful modality. If you're interested in learning more about Joe and Jaden Bell, you can follow facebook.com Joe's Walk for Change. Even though Joe
Mm,
himself was hit along his journey and died, they are many beautiful human souls that are continuing to keep his walk going and continuing to run this nonprofit. So make sure you look that up. It's called Joe Bell. It's available on Amazon Prime Video, and you can look on Facebook at Joe's Walk for Change. I am so grateful for all of you. If you happen to be watching us on our YouTube channel, please remember to like the video, leave a comment, talk to us about something we can talk to you about. If you have any questions about, clean, real, passionate questions about anything transgender, anything LGBTQ plus, then hit us up in those comments or reach out to us in private messages.
mhm.
Pamela's a lot more available than I am at this moment, but I'm hopefully that's going to change soon. But reach out for us and ask those questions. You don't have to be a trans person to become a trans ally. So figure out
Right.
how you can do that. What do you want to know? What do you need to know? What can help you be more comfortable within you to be yourself in the world? These are the issues we want to talk about. And so we look forward to hearing from you. So hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, and know that we're here to make change. Change through understanding. Love it. I love it. Pamela, it's been an amazing Sunday night
Yes.
conversation again.
As
I think
always.
I thank you, everyone who joined us. Stephanie Wagner, I love you. Joni Boynton, I love you. Anyone else we haven't seen, StreamYard only shows us so many, and we love you. Thank you for supporting this project, and we'll see you next Sunday. All right.
Oh,
Anything you want to say, Pam? You want to leave us off with anything?
we actually won't be here next Sunday, remember?
Oh, that's right, Pam. See, I knew that was something said. Pam needs to say something. That's right. We won't be here next Sunday. In fact,
But I will be posting any and all numbers that I can find, any hotline numbers. I'll get the information about that movie and about that walk. Anything that's online. I will post it under all of the where this was shared, everywhere that this was seen, I will post underneath it, after the show. So tonight and tomorrow morning, you'll be able to see any of this stuff that we've talked about. I'll post it underneath there.
Thank you so much for all the work that you do here. And thanks everybody else for
Absolutely.
being here tonight. Y'all have an amazing week, and we
Bye.
will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.